On the 1st of August, 1320, a woman was dragged back into the episcopal palace at Pamiers in chains. She had run. 6 days earlier, Béatrice de Planissoles had stood before Bishop Jacques Fournier, looked at his register, and said essentially nothing. No comment, no confession. She walked out. Then she fled, rode hard toward a village called Massants-Puels, nearly 20 miles northeast of Pamiers, and hid. Bailiffs found her within the week. When they brought her back on August 1st, she still denied everything. Her name meant nothing in that register, she said. She remembered no names, no meetings, no heretics sheltered in the dark. 4 days later, on August 7th, she began to talk, and Jacques Fournier wrote down every word. That document, the register he kept between 1318 and 1325, covering 578 separate interrogations, is currently sitting in the Vatican Library. Manuscript number 430, 3 volumes. In about 7 minutes, I'm going to tell you what happened to the man who compiled it. It's going to change how you see everything that came before. Montaillou sat in the foothills of the French Pyrenees, small enough that a fast walk took you from one end to the other in minutes. 250 people, give or take. Farmers, shepherds, a miller. Stone houses built close together against the mountain winters, and a fortress above the village where Beatrice had lived as the wife of the local lord. A woman of minor nobility, property of her own, educated, somewhere around 46 years old when Fournier's men came for her. She had been born around 1274. She had outlived 2 husbands, she had 4 daughters, and for most of her adult life, she had moved through a village that harboured a secret the Church had been trying to destroy for over 100 years: Catharism. A version of Christianity that rejected the Catholic Church as corrupt, rejected the material world as evil, and organised its own wandering clergy, men called the perfecti, who moved between villages at night and slept in barns, and performed rituals that the Church classified as heresy. The papacy had launched a full military crusade against Catharism in the 1300s. It had burned towns, it had killed thousands. The perfecti had gone underground. Some of them were sleeping in Beatrice's house. She hadn't stumbled into this. Her first husband's family had Cathar sympathies. Her own father would later be convicted of supporting the heresy. She had listened to the perfecti preach. She had knelt before them to receive their blessing, a ritual called the consolamentum. She had spoken openly about her doubts regarding Catholic doctrine, not to strangers. To people she trusted, one of them was the village priest. His name was Pierre Clergue. Remember that name. If you're watching from somewhere in the world tonight, drop your city in the comments. I'm always curious where this channel reaches. Jacques Fournier became Bishop of Pamiers in 1317, and what he built over the next 7 years was unlike anything most inquisitors attempted. He didn't rely on torture, he didn't need to. His method was something more patient and more thorough. He talked to people, one at a time, for hours, across multiple sessions spread over days and weeks, and he wrote down everything. The register wasn't a summary, it was a transcript. Every question, every answer, in the witness's own words, in the order they spoke them. When an answer conflicted with what someone else had already said, Fournier noted it and scheduled another session. He cross-referenced names, dates, locations. He built a map of an entire community's private life from the testimony of the community itself. By the time Béatrice de Planissoles first appeared before him, in late July 1320, Fournier had already been building her section of that map for months. He had spoken to her neighbours, her acquaintances, people who had eaten in her house and prayed beside her and borrowed things from her kitchen. They had named her. They had described conversations. They had mentioned, in careful detail, what she kept. Pierre Clergue had spoken too. The priest who had been her lover for 2 years, who had come to her in the night, who had listened to everything she believed, who had her trust in the particular way that only someone you've chosen completely can have it, sat across from Fournier and gave him her name. She offered him her trust. He offered the bishop her name. When Beatrice finally started talking on August 7th, the confessions came in layers. She admitted to sheltering the perfecti. She admitted to receiving their blessing. She described the theological conversations she'd had, the doubts she'd expressed, the beliefs she'd held quietly for years while attending Catholic Mass with everyone else in the village. Then came the objects. The first was a parchment, a small text she wore against her skin. She told Fournier it was a protective charm, something to ensure safe childbirth. Across subsequent sessions, as his questions grew more specific, a different picture emerged. The words on it carried Cathar theological meaning. She had been wearing it for years, against her body, underneath her clothing. The second object was harder to explain away, a fragment of bone from her first husband's skull. She had kept it after his death, carried it. When Fournier asked why, she said she believed it protected her. It was in the register now. Remember that parchment she wore against her skin? In about 4 minutes, the document recording it is going to become the only evidence that Béatrice de Planissoles ever existed. The interrogations continued across multiple sessions through August and into the fall. Her account shifted. She denied things, then admitted them. She reframed details she had already confirmed. Fournier noted every change without raising his voice. He simply returned to the same point from a different angle until the record contained what he needed. But there was one thing she didn't give him. Running through Fournier's questions was a thread, a name, a person she had sheltered, someone whose identity the bishop wanted confirmed. She answered every question around it. She gave him everything else. That one name, across every session, she left blank. The transcript records him, circling back to it. Then moving on, she had held one thing. Inside a room, designed to take everything, the sentence came in stages. On the 8th of March, 1321, Beatrice de Planissoles was condemned to prison. 14 months later, on the 4th of July, 1322, the sentence was commuted. She would not be imprisoned. She would wear the yellow crosses instead, 2 of them, large, sewn permanently onto the front and back of every garment she owned. In 14th century Languedoc, this was a specific, calculated punishment. Every person she passed could see them. Every market, every doorway, every road, the crosses announced what she had been judged to be. Neighbours who had known her for decades now had a church-sanctioned reason to treat her as something contaminated. The crosses didn't destroy her body. They dismantled the world she moved through while leaving her standing in it. She was in her late 40s by then. She had 4 daughters. She wore the crosses. Pierre Clergue, the priest who had testified and named her, who had used the Inquisition as a shield and turned her trust into evidence, was eventually arrested himself. The machine he had fed came back for him too. He died in prison before his sentence could be carried out. The betrayer was consumed by the same system he'd served. Jacques Fournier, meanwhile, had moved on. After Pamiers, he rose quickly, Bishop of Mirepoix in 1326, Cardinal in 1327, and then on the 20th of December 1334, the cardinals gathered in Avignon and elected him Pope, Benedict XII, head of the Catholic Church. The man who had conducted 578 interrogations in the mountains of southern France, who had written down the private confessions of shepherds and farmers and one minor noblewoman who had tried to run, became the most powerful religious figure in the Western world. He brought his methods with him. His approach to inquisitorial investigation, the patient cross-referencing, the full transcripts, the exhaustive multi-session questioning shaped church procedure for generations. The register he'd kept wasn't a personal quirk, it became a model. On the day, they placed the papal crown on his head in Avignon. Beatrice de Planissoles was alive somewhere in southern France, still wearing the crosses. The Fournier register travelled with him when he left. After his death in 1342, it made its way to the Vatican Library, where it was catalogued as Latin Manuscript 4030 and largely forgotten for centuries. In 1965, a scholar named John Duvernoy published the first complete modern edition in Latin. The French translation followed in 1978, and in that same year, Emmanuel Leroy-Ladure's book, Montaillou, built almost entirely from Fournier's register, was translated into English and became an international phenomenon. Millions of readers, dozens of languages. Béatrice de Planissoles appeared in those pages in more detail than almost any medieval woman ever recorded. Her words, her choices, her objects, her silences, the name she never gave. Most women of the 14th century are simply gone. They lived and they died, and history kept nothing to prove they were there. Beatrice exists, documented, name, specific, because Jacques Fournier was meticulous. Because he wrote everything down, because the institution that targeted her preserved her in the process of trying to break her. The machine built to erase her is the only reason she's still here. If you've stayed to the end of this one, it genuinely means something. Thank you. Here's what I want to leave you with. The same register that convicted Béatrice de Planissoles, that recorded her confession and marked her as a heretic and stripped away the life she'd built, that register is the only reason her name survived 700 years. So tell me what you think. Was her survival a form of defiance, proof that no institution can fully silence the people it targets? Or was being remembered only through your persecutor's record the last thing the machine ever took from her? Leave your answer in the comments.